know about you, D-Gun, but ain't no party like a sports take party because a sports take party don't stop. Welcome back to Sports Take, you guys. I'm your guy, Tone. This show's the second. Filling in for Rob Ellis. And here we have our guy, Derek Gunner. How you feeling, man? You doing all right?
Man, it's something
you took your customary bathroom break. The customary bathroom break has been taken care of?
Yeah, man. You know, every now and then you got to do what you got to do. I had to go downstairs, get myself a quick snack, and came back up. Do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. You ain't the only one, man. Look, I went over, grabbed myself a Cliff Bar, grabbed myself a Slim Jim. I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling good.
I went and grabbed myself some Starburst.
Now you see the difference, right? He went and got candy. That's not. And what did I do? I went and got some things that's going to sustain me. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Oh man, I call it pain and pleasure. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do with what soothes the savage beast. You know,
I ain't mad at that.
And I saw those Skittles sitting there. A Starburst sitting there. I'm like, I gotta have it.
Do those belong to the kids, D-Gun? Did you take the kids Starburst?
I might have. I might have. I might have taken them. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I may have. You know, and I honestly admit, you know, I have no intentions of growing up anytime soon.
Why should you?
Why should I grow up? You know, I'm an adult when I have to be. Mm-hmm. Public functions, things like that. But at home, my family don't know what to expect from me day to day. Just never know. You know, why be predictable in life? You know what? I'm a simple man. I'm simple means. You know, you don't see me out and about in public a lot. You know, you never see me in a bar. I stay close to the vest with the family, grandkids. You know, if I'm fishing, I'm out by myself or with, you know, close friends, you know. So when it's my time to cut loose, you just don't know what you're going to get. You can't be predictable all the time, right?
I ain't mad at you. Play on, player. That's what I always say. Play on.
I drive my wife nuts, but that's what I'm supposed to do.
Listen, don't get me started about driving a wife nuts, man. My wife, sometimes she look at me with the with the devil eyes. Like she cut her eye at me like, listen, Tone, hey, don't get it twisted, okay? I'll let you have fun, you know, on the mic, on camera and all, but when you home, hey, pipe down, okay? I play too much. That's my problem, Deacon. I play too much. That's my biggest issue. I'm a goofball.
See, I am too.
I play a little too much.
I am too. And my wife has a limited sense of humor. You know, you gotta. It's like you gotta know when to the jab all the time. You know, you gotta pick and choose your moments well, because sometimes it can come back and bite you. You know,
gotta stick and move, D-Gun. You gotta stick and move.
Yeah, you know.
Speaking of sticking and moving, right? The Eagles had joint practice with the Cleveland Browns yesterday, and they're also going to have it today as well. So they had it yesterday, Monday. They're going to have it today, Tuesday, depending on when you're watching the show. The Eagles are having joint practice with the Cleveland Browns yesterday and today, Monday and Tuesday.
Well, not only that, but they were supposed to practice at 5:00 today, but because of the possibility of inclement weather, they moved today's practice up to 1:45. You know, it was supposed to be later in the day, but now they started practice a few minutes ago on today's session. But yesterday's session, man, we got a whole lot of pluses and minuses from various media members on Twitter, X Twitter, whatever that thing is now. The pros and cons of what happened, and there was some interesting comments out there about what looked good and what did not look so good for the Eagles.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's so funny because throughout the entire day, it was quite frankly nip and tuck. You know, the Browns won this rep, the Eagles won this rep, and it was a constant back and forth. It was the competitive juices were flowing at an all-time high. It's so funny. I think about the trenches, right? The offensive line play and the defensive line play. Jordan Mailata had to go up against Myles Garrett, for a good portion of that practice. You know, he got beat quite a few times. And then you saw Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick taking advantage, of guys like Joe Patino and Wyatt Teller. Those guys are very good at their position. The Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles have two of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Absolutely.
You can make an argument. Eagles have one. Cleveland Browns have 2. Some people may say Cleveland Browns have 1, Eagles have 2. Both those teams are constantly jockeying for position for having the best offensive line in the NFL. Yet, both of those offensive lines had a pretty rough go at it, dealing with some pretty intense pass rushes from the Cleveland Browns.
You know, because of the Cleveland Browns' lack of consistent success in recent years, I think a lot of their talent goes unnoticed and underappreciated. But the Cleveland Browns,
I agree 100%.
have a pretty good defensive front. And, you know, I saw it. What really jumped out was when I saw a couple of media members say that the Cleveland Browns defensive front got the equivalent of 6 or 7 sacks on Jalen Hurts, and they got a pick as well. Well, you got Myles Garrett over there. Let me go on record as saying right now, I'll take Myles Garrett over Nick Bosa any day of the week. Give me Myles Garrett. And Nick Bosa is a phenomenal player, but I'll take Myles Garrett. And who got the task of going up against Myles Garrett yesterday? Jordan Mailata. If you want to get better at what you do, you can't pick too many players better than Myles Garrett to practice your craft against, to work on your techniques, to work on your weaknesses to make them a strength. And there was I saw a picture after practice from one of the media members that showed an ISO shot of Jordan Mailata standing there talking to Garrett. And if I'm Mailata, especially because Cleveland's not on my schedule this year, I am picking Myles Garrett's brain as long as I'm standing in front of him. What do you see me doing wrong? What do you think I need to get better at? Do I need to get out of my snaps quicker? Is my foot placement wrong? Because you are getting the best of me. Tell me, can you help me out? And a lot of times, football players help each other, okay, in a lot of cases. And if I'm Jordan Mailata, for as far as he's come as an NFL player in a short amount of time, there's always room for him to get better. The great ones, like the Lane Johnsons, don't stop. They don't let their past laurels speak for them. They're always working on something to get better. And hopefully Jordan Mailata took advantage of that moment in time after practice with Myles Garrett to pick his brain and to get some vital information on what can make him better for what's to come in a grueling schedule, because they're going to face some interesting – Mailata's going to face some very interesting pass rushers. There's no question about that. And he's got some guys that are going to be coming. When you look at that Eagles offensive line and you say, who's the weak link of the tackles, who are you going to look at?
You got to go Mailata.
Go Mailata, okay?
But to be fair to him, right? But to be fair to him, the distance traveled for him is unheard of, right? No, a guy that wasn't not even from this country, not even familiar with the sport, didn't know how to put the shoulder pads or the helmet on,
right?
Didn't understand the look of football. Yet he dedicated himself to the craft. He got by the grace of the football gods, he was blessed to be taught by two of the best when it comes to offensive line play, and that's Jeff Stoutland and Eugene Chung. When he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think Eugene Chung trained him at IMG Academy, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, Jordan Mailata has had the best of the best when it comes to learning the game of football, but more importantly, learning that offensive line mentality, the position of being a left tackle. He already has a dog-eat-dog mentality, right? I don't think you had to teach him. He's one of those guys you point and you say sick him. You had to teach him to be a dog. But what you had to do was you had to train the dog. You had to give him the fundamentals, the techniques, so on and so forth. And I think still to this day, Mailata is a very raw talent. What's your thoughts?
Just put it in perspective like this. You said very raw talent who has refined his game to where he is now a well-paid starting offensive tackle in the National Football League. And he beat out a first-round draft pick in Andre Dillard to win that. So what does that tell you what Jeff Stoutland and the Eagles organization think about his progress in a short amount of time? They drafted Andre Dillard thinking he was going to be a starting offensive lineman for him in the National Football League. And this rugby player who was hungry and wanted to learn the American game got all the coaching he could, both within the organization and outside the organization, and elevated himself to where this team gave him a $40-50 million contract, which is a small contract by offensive line standards, left tackle standards today. But that's what the Eagles thought of him. And now look at him now at 6'8". This man is 6'8", 350 pounds. First of all, he don't look 350 because he's cut. He's not like round. He's straight up and down.
Right.
And can move. You know, he utilized some of those rugby attributes to transition to a football player. And look at him now. Look at when we watched games last year when they ISO on Eagles run plays, and you see him just freight training people down the field. He just engulfed people. You see DNs who are prominent DNs. You can't even see him. They're trying to find the ball carrier. They can't see past this man. Feet constantly moving. Just a road grader. You know, kudos to him for being diligent in his work, and kudos to the organization for having faith in him. But that goes back to what I said in the earlier segment. This team that just identified this guy's a 7th-round pick project. They were patient with him, and they had people in front of him to help teach him along the way and let him learn the grade. It wasn't that he was rushed. They didn't put him in there on a regular basis until they said, okay, this man's ready to go. When Till Stoutland gave them the green light and said he's ready to go, they didn't have to put him in there. But it was a low value investment they saw potential in. And look at how he's blossomed at this point.
You bring a very good point. You know, another guy who's starting to blossom into his role in Philadelphia is a guy that came out of nowhere, really, an undrafted guy out of Middle Tennessee State, Reed Blankenship at safety. You know, he's a guy who's starting to turn heads every single time he touches the field in training camp, to the point where he's considered and I give credit to my guy John McMullen, for coining this term, a deference player, right? You know, he's a guy that he's not going to see the field in training camp because they're so secure in what he brings to the table and his ability. And you know, when I watch a guy like Reed Blankenship play, especially last season, he may not jump up the screen from an athleticism standpoint, but he's almost never in the wrong place at the wrong time. As a matter of fact, he understands how to play that position so well, and he's so disciplined. He's so refined at the position. I believe he was a 4 or 5 year starter at Middle Tennessee. Yeah. And when you put it in context like that, he truly understands what it takes to play that position. Now, playing it on this level in the NFL is definitely a different conversation. But coming in when CJ got hurt last year and making the splash plays that he did, and making key stops, key tackles, so on and so forth. Again, he's not the most athletic guy, but he's a willing tackler. He's one of the best tacklers on the team, and he just understands the position through and through.
Here's the difference, first and foremost, between him and Mailata. Mailata's at a stage where he doesn't have to worry about somebody taking his job as long as he does his job.
Right.
Blankenship is in a position he can do his job, but he's looking over his shoulder. You've got Sidney Brown. You've got this young man, Justin Evans, waiting in the wings. And Reed Blankenship's room for error is minuscule compared to Jordan Mailata.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because Reed Blankenship has the experience on those other guys right now, but those other guys may have the athleticism on him that could expedite their ability to move up quicker, than Reed Blankenship would want him. So Reed in his mind has got to say, you know what, I can't let the things I do wrong hover over me for too long, because that's when you start to make mistakes. I've got to be able to keep that even keel between physical attributes and that mental switch that turns off and on in a fraction of a second to make that definitive decision to make the plays that keep me on the field. If not, everybody's clamoring for Sidney Brown. He hasn't even done anything yet in the NFL.
Right.
Justin Evans, everybody's clamoring for. He hasn't done anything yet. But just because of the names, he's got to worry about all this. So he's got to keep playing this mental battle with himself. I've got to focus on just playing football and doing the things that got me this far. Because when I start overthinking things, that's when I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. In the joint training camps with the Browns, he had an interception and nearly had another interception off of Amari Cooper dropping the ball. He had pass breakups. He was kind of making life really difficult out there for Deshaun Watson. But also, you coupled that with the pass rush. You forced the quarterback to make a bad decision. Reed Blankenship has shown an ability to read the quarterback's eyes like he did on Aaron Rodgers of his first play, in the season last year. I want to transition to the running back situation really quickly. We saw DeAndre Swift have a really solid run in that preseason game against the Ravens. I think it was like a 23-yard run.
22-yard run.
Yeah, 22-yard run. And it wasn't just the distance traveled, it was how he got there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it's not about the route. You know what I mean? Or I put it to you this way: sometimes it's not about the distance, it's not about the miles. It's about how you got there. Did you take the shortcuts? Did you take the underpass or the overpass? Like, well, how did you get there? Did you take I-95? Did you take 70? How did you get here? Because all routes aren't created equal. Yep. And when I saw that cut move coming out of the back, and the guy would have had him dead to rights. He would have had him. But I saw that stopping that cut, and then I saw him get upfield and then lower that shoulder. I was like, oh, okay. All right, I think they may have something here. So I guess my question for you is, knowing what we know about DeAndre Swift's past outside of Philly, and then seeing what he did in his first taste of live football action, do you think DeAndre Swift has done enough to cement himself not just on the roster, because they traded for him, so he's going to be on the roster? Let me frame it like this: do you think he's done enough to the point where Nick Sirianni and those guys can shelve him for the rest of the preseason?
I would think so. You just wanted him to work up a sweat, but he's still learning this offense, and they're still figuring out the best way to utilize him. There's one thing to look at players on film when you want to get some players in here and say, man, that's the kind of player I want. But everybody's system is a little bit different. So when you get him in here, you're experimenting. How is he better suited to be successful in what we do in the structure of our offense? So I wouldn't be surprised if him and Penny got a few more touches in the upcoming game on Thursday night against Cleveland, but I don't think they'll be in there as long. You know, we don't need to see Gainwell and Boston Scott because we know what they can do in Nick Sirianni offense. You know, Trey Sermon is a guy who's going to get his touches because he's so far down on the depth chart, and he's a quality running back. Now, the more you play him and expose him, the more likely you are, if you try to hide him on the practice squad, somebody's going to pick him off. You know, you got lucky and you had him here all last season, although they protected him by keeping him on the 53-man last year. I don't see them keeping 5 running backs on the 53-man this year.
So who do you think the 4 running backs are going to be? Because I think they may enter this season with 4 running backs on the active roster. Who do you think?
It's got to be the obvious 4. It's got to be Penny, Swift, Gainwell, and Boston Scott. You know, and there's no need to move those guys. They have proven themselves at this level. They have been effective at this level.
There's no chance Trey Sermon knocks off Penny.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I think the only way a Sermon elevates himself is if one of those guys gets hurt, any of those 4 guys get hurt in the preseason to the point they're not going to be ready for the regular season. I think that's the only way that he cracks the top 4. And unfortunately, it's not because of a lack of physical ability. It's just that he's caught up in a numbers game.
Yeah, I totally understand that perspective. You know, really quickly before we take our quick break, you know, I want to talk about DeVonta Smith and Denzel Ward. Those two were going at it, you know, competitively, of course, in the joint practices. You know, there was plays where DeVonta got the better of Ward, and you know, there were moments where Ward, you know, got the better of DeVonta. You know, DeVonta Smith is a guy that was drafted high, drafted top 10 for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he has been a guy that's just been a workhorse, but also such a disciplined customer, right? A guy who truly understands the wide receiver position, understands all the nuances and all the details when it comes to footwork, and you know, just you know, knowing what to do at the top of your routes. And he's just such a spectacular athlete at the position in terms of just technique and fundamentals and route running and understanding leverage. And I think he's one of the best sideline catchers in the NFL. Just knowing where to have his feet and knowing where to place his hands, so on and so forth. You know, what do you think the future holds for a guy like DeVonta Smith in Philadelphia? You know, the Eagles, you know, really quick before you answer, the Eagles love their homegrown players. You know, so you know, what do you think the future holds for a guy like DeVonta Smith, and what do you think a DeVonta Smith contract extension looks like?
It's hard to tell what the extension looks like because the numbers continuously go up. Although, you know, every position doesn't go up to the magnitude of a quarterback, obviously, but the numbers keep going up. So if he keeps doing what he's doing, his next contract is going to put him in the top 2 to 5 receivers in a game. Okay.
Do you think his contract goes, just for perspective, AJ Brown makes $25 million a year.
Right.
He signed a 4-year, $100 million extension with the Eagles. So he's at $25 million per year on average, right? Obviously, guys like Tyreek Hill, DeVonta Adams, those guys are above him.
Right.
So putting it into perspective like that, is DeVonta Smith a $25 million wide receiver right now? Like, do you see? And again, we know that the money always goes up, so things can always change. But just putting into perspective, you know, how do you see DeVonta Smith's extension looking like when you know what a guy like AJ Brown is making?
If he continues to be this productive and his numbers continue to go up, they're going to have to pay him because he'll still be a young man. And the Eagles, you know, when you have a receiver like that, especially a primetime receiver, you don't want to just let him go, you know. And I can see the Eagles now. You can say, are the Eagles going to pay 2 wide receivers that kind of money? I would say the answer is probably yes. If they're both being as productive and complementary to each other as they are now, that's a luxury a lot of teams don't have when you have 2,000-yard receivers. You know, and if that's an integral part of your offense, you want to keep that flow going as much as possible. And let's face it, by the time they get to negotiating a new contract with DeVonta Smith in a couple of years, the cap's going to be going up significantly as well. So you have more money to play with under the cap number, whatever that number is. The cap number usually goes up anywhere from $10 to $12 million a year. So you're going to have a little bit more money to play with and still be able to have wiggle room to get some of the other things that you need to keep your team a solid team. But, you know, DeVonta went from over 900 receiving yards his rookie year to a 1,000-yard receiver his second year. If he goes up 1,200 yards the next year and 1,400 yards the next, and he's still only like 25, 26, 27, you don't think the Eagles are going to pay him? Absolutely, they're going to pay him.
No, you're right. You know, and you know, again, putting into perspective, with AJ Brown signing a 4-year, $100 million extension with the Philadelphia Eagles, only $57.2 million of that contract is guaranteed. So you can make an educated guesstimate that only the first 2 years of that extension. This is the first year of AJ Brown's actual contract beginning with the Eagles.
Right.
When they traded for him, he was still on that rookie deal last year. This is the first year of that contract taking effect. So you can make an argument after the 2023 and after the 2024 season, and that's going to be around the time where DeVonta Smith's contract's coming up. You know, there's no guarantee that AJ Brown will be here beyond the guaranteed money, because you know then he's going to start looking for an extension. You know, once players run out of their guaranteed money, now they're looking at, okay, you know, are we going to extend? What are we going to do? Are we going to restructure? Are we going to give more money up front? How are we going to make this thing work? So, as far as what you said about the Eagles paying 2 wide receivers north of $25 million per year, it's going to be fascinating to see how that thing pans out. We understand that AJ Brown is Jalen Hurts' best friend, but I also understand that Harry Roseman is real big on his homegrown talent. I see Harry Roseman dedicating resources to a DeVonta Smith before he dedicates his resources to AJ Brown.
Yeah, I agree, because DeVonta is younger. You know, and let's face it, if AJ, who had 1,500 receiving yards his first year with the Eagles, if he has over the next couple of years 12, 1,300 consistently, he's going to ask to redo that contract.
Of course.
And at that time, the Eagles are going to have to identify, well, we have this young up-and-coming player, and even though Howie Roseman, if he really wanted to, he'll find a way to get both of them under the cap. I doubt if he would pay both of them, because there's going to be another receiver that comes along that they may look at, or one of the young receivers they have in fold, or a free agent younger receiver they may have in-house. Howie may be satisfied that young receiver can elevate his game to the point in the structure of Nick Sirianni's offense to be an effective off receiver or complementary receiver to a DeVonta Smith. You know, the numbers game in the NFL is crazy. And, you know, Howie is the best of the best, him and several others in the league, the best of the best, and moving money around to make things fit. And at that time, we still don't know, what will the Eagles need to identify? What could they possibly lose in personnel that they feel they may have to identify more so than paying 2 high-priced receivers?
Absolutely. And since we're going crazy with the wide receiver topic, I have a very fascinating conversation I want to have with you in the next segment. I'm not going to leak it just yet, but I think you know what I'm talking about. It involves number ones on both sides of the ball. So Eagles fans, make sure you guys stay locked in, smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Tone DeShields II, filling in for our guy, Rob Ellis. We'll be back in the